Hello and welcome back to the LFCS Talks podcast. My name is Troy Beyer, and today I have two amazing guests, Jenn Lansford and Tammy Harrell. How are you ladies doing?
Great.
Good. Is that mic staring you in the face still?
Pretty close.
Pretty close. Okay.
I'll deal with it.
Are we going to survive? Okay, I think we'll survive. Okay, so the first question is just kind of a general bio. So if you could tell me how long you've been at the school, what you do, what you've done, because I mean, a lot of us at LFCS have started in one place, and we've ended up where we're at because of this great journey. Mm-hmm. So Tammy, let's start with you.
This is my 15th year at our school, and
Nice.
I started out as a first grade teacher. I taught first grade for 4 years. Your daughter was in first grade when I
No
was
way.
teaching first grade. And then I transitioned to Librarian art. At some point, I became the department head, not really sure when. So I oversee the art and library department for K-12. So we have art, K-12, we have music, K-5, K-6. K5. And we also have library K-8, as well as the Freedom Academy has a library. The high school uses it for curriculum. So it's a whole bunch of things.
And I'm just going to shout out for everybody listening. Tammy is an incredible gatekeeper of a beautiful thing that we do. I mean, I don't know what most people know about schools, but schools are cutting again. It seems like we go through these cycles every 10 years, but they're cutting again arts and library and things like that, which is tragic. And Tammy is the one who heads that up at Literacy First, and there is no plans of that, like library art, ever going away from our school. It's hugely important to the development of kids as we're having this conversation that we're about to have about what kids need, right? So,
Definitely.
so thank you for being all of those things. You have developed an amazing program on multiple
you.
fronts.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Jenn, you're up.
All right. Well, this is my 9th year in the classroom here at Literacy First. I teach 6th grade. I took over the lead role the year COVID hit, so that was quite a learning journey for me. I started here subbing, actually.
Oh, really?
So I got a long-term sub position for Miss Maldonado when she had her first baby, and that was just so I worked with Karen. It was awesome. But my journey here started well before that. I have 2 kids. My oldest is a sophomore in college, and she happens to also work with us here. And then I have a graduating senior. So
awesome.
Both literacy kids, K-12, and could not be more happy as a parent or a teacher. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so first real question, we're going to dive into this topic. So the topic that we are going to cover, which I didn't really talk about at the beginning, is what do kids need? And we're going to talk about, the kind of things that kids need as they're developing through the ages. And the reason why I came to the two of you is because, Tammy, you have worked with kids kindergarten all the way up through 5th, 6th, 8th. You have a huge breadth of knowledge and experience with the kiddos. And you and I have worked together over the years with kids with special needs, and you have a phenomenal kind of sense of what each individual kid needs to succeed. Like, I've seen that over the years play out. So that's why you're here. You are amazing with the little kiddos. And then Jenn, you're a 6th grade teacher and have experiences with your own kids. You're working with, specifically kind of, I would say, upper elementary, the older kids, and have another great perspective of, what kids have received even when they're younger to develop into 6th graders, and then have that idea of what kids need when they're upper elementary to shoot them off into high school. So that's kind of why I asked the two of you to be a part of it, and I'm excited about this conversation. So question 1, let's talk about physical activity. Regarding physical activity, what do kids need? What have you learned that kind of like helps kids develop and grow as far as physical activity? Either of you, go for it.
I'll start.
Okay.
I did do a little research on this one because I wanted to make sure I had it down. I know what my gut says, but an hour a day. Kids need to be active an hour a day. And whatever that looks like, at the older age, when they get to like 6th grade, 11, 12, and plus,
Right.
it should... social activities would benefit them the most,
Okay.
like team sports. Anytime they're outside, moving around, fresh air, sports, anything is awesome because it literally helps them to sleep. I mean, that's
Right.
the first thing that gets kids to sleep is that they're tired.
Right.
And they're tired
Absolutely.
because they've had all that fresh air.
Right.
So my
Totally.
recommendation Not that I am a physician, but I have found active kids are happy kids.
I think science would back you up.
Yeah.
I think that there's all kinds of research. You don't have to be a doctor to say that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the research backs that up. Active kids, happy kids,
Yeah.
are smart kids, are kids that sleep well. I mean, the spiral, you hit on all of it. Yeah.
For sure.
What have you seen, Tammy?
So I was thinking about that when I teach art and I have the kids get really quiet, really focused. And I realized stretching, calm, that almost meditative state that kids need is also physical. And having downtime and having that reflection time, a place where they start to just disengage and they get focused on something that is important to them, whether it be an art thing or riding your bike or something. Our kids today are sometimes so busy that they don't know how to rest. And I think as adults also don't always know how to rest. And so making sure that we're purposeful in teaching physical activity and the movement, but also incorporating rest and downtime is also just as important. For me, teaching art, we talk a lot about the fact that art will slow down your heart rate. It will start to release dopamine. It starts to help you work out social problems that you might have or mental blocks that you're having. When you can get so focused on your artwork that you forget about everything else, you start to really do deep work within your own body. And I think that's something that we often forget. So
That's amazing. You know what? I didn't even see it going in that direction, but that is so true. I've done some studies on somatic practices and like the vagus nerve and how like stimulating that nerve actually helps you calm. It helps you process stuff. Like everything you just said.
yeah.
That's a great thing to bring into the conversation of physical activity. So what have you seen? Like, what have you seen in, like, because we've seen lots of students. So let's do some compare and contrast. Let's compare students that have effectively been able to rest, and whether that with my daughter, she loves to grab like it's her headphones, and we give her CDs because we don't really do the phone thing. We give her CDs in like a Walkman, and she'll listen to her audiobooks, and she can just go into her own little world, and she'll do art or she'll draw. And she'll listen to something, and that kind of lets her decompress from the day. And then when she's done that, she comes out and she's like super stoked. So like, what have you seen with students that are, let's go first with able to rest correctly versus students who, let's say, don't? What have you seen the differences?
Well, in art specifically, the ones who live busy lives, I mean, let me think about this. I have found that for some of the kids, it takes them a while. They're not used to it. They don't really know how to do it. And so giving them practice, we do our thinking time in silence. And that's a little bit different than what we usually do. But they're going to be going into museums, hopefully. They're going to be going into libraries, hopefully. And they need to be comfortable with silence. So at first, it's really awkward. And then as the kids who are not used to it start to settle in, you see them there's this relaxing that happens. It's all that energy just kind of flows out, and it's like everybody's taking a deep breath.
That's awesome.
Some of them, it takes a while to get there, but they ultimately do. And
That's
then
awesome.
it's just a pin could drop and everybody would hear it.
Right. So this is rhetorical, but you can answer it, please. Is handing your son or daughter a phone and then letting them stare at that for 30 minutes, is that relaxing?
That is not relaxing.
Okay.
That only stirs up more emotions,
Okay.
and it actually starts to activate the wrong parts of the brain.
Awesome.
Am I correct in
You are
saying
100.
that?
I would say that
Okay.
is 1,000% accurate. Yeah. You're ramping up the nervous system. You're not ramping down the nervous system.
Right.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So I guess my point there is saying, don't think that the kid's quiet means that they're actually relaxing or they're resting. Quietness can be obsession with one of these things or playing a game. They need to get away from the screens, actually produce some art, actually maybe listen to something, maybe just chill. Kids need to just chill.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Compare and contrast. Kids that have come into 6th grade or maybe even other grades that you've taught who are frequently in team sports, frequently outside, frequently playing, who compare just students who maybe don't. What are the differences in those students, the way you've seen them interact in a classroom?
What I have personally seen, I had a great interaction with a student recently who just joined a sports team.
Awesome.
And prior to that, I had noticed that the student would always come to class circles under the eyes. I would say, what time did you go to bed? Well, I laid down at 11, but I really didn't sleep. So about 3 o'clock, the story continues, right?
Yep.
So the student just joined a sports team and said, I didn't have my nap right after school. So because I had practice.
Okay.
Right after practice, I came home, I ate dinner. Then I stayed to do homework. I went to bed at 9. I slept the whole night. She was so excited to say that she had slept the whole night. And what a difference that makes in the day. Like the kids come ready to work. They come rested from a night's rest, from that physical activity. So, but I do see what you're saying a lot in the class, that students are lacking that ability to calm their body. So I think sometimes on the flip side, students that are very busy, that do play sports after school, or they are in clubs, or that they definitely need our support and help in managing that, and teaching them how to deal with that time to calm your brain, and then the benefits that come out of that. Because I don't think kids can do that on their own.
I agree. So it would sound that it's almost a both and.
Yes.
And really, the success of one is contingent on the success of the other.
Absolutely.
Being the more physically active and consistent a student is being physically active, the more successful they will be when it's time to rest and relax and decompress. Because if a student has no physical activity and goes home, sits on the couch, plays games, doesn't go outside, is not physically active, when they come time to relax or chill, their brain is probably still ramped up and unable to relax. And vice versa. If a kiddo hasn't been able to kind of relax correctly, then they aren't able to want to get outside and be physically active.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So, it seems like these are very important. Both very important to
Yes.
each other. That's awesome. Cool. Anything else to add on that topic?
No, I think you covered
was
it.
good
That
stuff.
was great. Yeah, I like the both and. That's
Totally.
awesome.
Okay. Mental challenges and emotional support. So in regard to overcoming emotional support, in fact, I put these books up here on purpose, Never Quit and The Edge. These two books were given to me by my grandpa. And they're kind of like a theme in the Beyer household of just never quit, never give up. If you know Debbie Beyer, it's kind of one of her themes. But what have you seen in regard to being mentally challenged or needing emotional support, or what kind of emotional support kids needs? What have you guys seen in that area in your experience? Let's start with Tammy.
So I might have taken this a little bit different
No,
as
go
well.
for it.
I was thinking specifically about the arts, that kids need autonomy in their projects. To be mentally challenged, they have to be able to start and finish a project by themselves. The creative process isn't just about art. The creative process could be about making a salad. It could be planning a hike. It could be anything that you love. But it's this concept of starting with an idea, which becomes your end goal, and then backwards designing, like we've been talking as teachers, to get to that goal. So in art, it looks like, what materials do I need? What do I want? How am I going to plan out the paper? Where do I start on the paper? When do I know that I'm finished?
Right.
Those are and then the self-reflection at the end of thinking about, how did I succeed or how did I fail in this?
Right.
All of that is super important because it leads to self-confidence, which leads to them being able to know that they can accomplish future challenges that come. I think as adults, we tend to jump in and say, here, let me help you with that. Or when they say, what medium should I use? You answer the question, and what I try to do is I try to flip the question back. So what medium do you use? I tell them, well, which one would be most successful for your artwork? So answering a question with a question helps them develop the skill of, that self-confidence of knowing that they can accomplish tasks on their own, which will cause them to take bigger and bigger challenges as they come up. So it could be making the salad at home for the family.
Right. So in other words, our students need to struggle.
Yeah.
And they need to see that they can overcome the struggles to then be ready to engage in real life, which is a struggle, as us adults know.
Yeah, and that's a piece of it.
Okay.
But I think they need to have the power of their own ideas, of being
Got
allowed to have completely their own idea that I am not giving the input into constantly. Now, developmentally, of course, that
Right,
changes throughout the grades.
Right.
When they're really young, you're just teaching the skills, you're teaching them exploration type of things. But by the time they're in 4th and 5th and 6th grade, they should be able to have an idea, get their own unique idea, and be able to run with it. Where really all I'm doing is coaching if I see them getting a little bit off track.
Got it.
But that, I think, is the big piece for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that totally plays into the classroom as well. Like, kids need to be able to have the ideas and then know how to execute those ideas and have the confidence to do that.
Yes.
And whether it's an art piece or a salad or an essay, like without those skills or the confidence, because the older they get, the more they want to be independent, the more they want to be their own person. And without those skills and without the ability to work through the things when they get hard, then they're not going to make it.
Right.
But I think also then we need to be ready to help them through failures, to really teach them that failures are great.
Yes.
Failing is an answer to a question. It might not have been the answer that you were expecting, but it will take you to your next journey or whatever it is that you're working on, your next struggle, which is so important for kids. So without that confidence piece, like it's not going to work.
Let's dig into confidence, right? So how do you build confidence? I mean, you talked about failure and the capacity to handle failure or accept failure as a good thing. I mean, you failed shouldn't be a bad word, a bad phrase. It should be a awesome. I'm on the road to learning. And the number of highly successful individuals that talk about failure guiding their life and being the most key important thing that happened, like historically, Jeff Bezos or however you say his last name, that owns Amazon, early on, when they were trying to develop all of these new things to figure out which direction Amazon would go, he talked about how most companies claim to have a ethos of failure is okay and failure guides our success. He said, but most companies will pull funding from a project before it even has a chance to fail. But like if you remember back in the day, Amazon tried to make a cell phone and they blew hundreds of millions of dollars on this whole phone thing before they settled on the Kindle. They spent a ton of money on that kind of stuff. And it was in the middle of that Jeff gave this talk about, I want my teams to actually feel the freedom to actually fail and actually cost their company money and actually like cost something, because the failures are what will guide the future success. And if you look at where Amazon now is, seems that played out pretty well for them, like it or not. Like they kind of own everything else. And so the idea of failure is so important. How do you build confidence though? Like how could someone listening to this understand and how to help their kids build confidence or their students build confidence?
I think it's letting go of complete control. I think we often, like I was saying earlier, we swoop in to rescue so quickly. And sometimes we need to sit back and watch to see if they can figure it out, because that's those little tiny small steps are what builds confidence. Confidence isn't just a magic thing that happens. It's something that piles up over time. It's like digging a hole and putting that pile and making it bigger and bigger and bigger. But it starts with one scoop. And it starts with us, first off, believing our kids can do it. I think sometimes we don't actually believe it and they surprise us. But if we can just let go a little bit when we see our kids struggling, when we see them trying a new thing that they've never done, and seeing if they succeed and believing ourselves that they can, they feed off of what we think. So
awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you totally covered it. I don't know what to add to that because it's so perfect. No, I think it's just it's acknowledging that first choice or that first step that the kids are taking. Like, I see you. I can see that you're working so hard. Being their biggest cheerleader, just being there while they work through that struggle. Right. And when they make the failure and, if they need to get a quick hug and send them back out and try again. Right. It's the constant reassurance that you're going to be okay. You're going to figure this out. I believe in you. You've got this.
I think you just said something important where you encourage them at that first step. Some kids do need that scaffolding. They need it step by step. And so maybe sometimes that confidence is, oh, you got the first step. Now let's work on the next step. And so giving them that freedom and that control over their own projects. But if a kid needs you to give them control over one step at a time, I think that's still building confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So it's more of a giving them freedom to walk through the struggle each step at a time than it is helping them do it in the moment.
Yeah.
Cool. And one thing that I've seen that's super valuable as well is as a student has walked through and struggled through a project or something, once they've completed it, then you get to have, there's a lot of traction that you can get from that conversation after the fact to saying,
Yes.
hey, remember how you felt at the beginning of this?
Yeah.
And then remember how you felt at the middle of it? And then remember how you felt right before you were done? But now look at it.
Yeah.
And they go back and they go, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I totally did that. And you can say, I didn't do that for you. You did that yourself. And so like those conversations are fun, like really fun, because then you get to like sit there and say, you did this. And then that's when like if their light bulb hadn't already like sparked that and you get to spark that light bulb in a kiddo, that's when you can just watch them take off.
Yeah. That's the last step of the creative process. If
Right.
you don't self-reflect, you haven't finished your project.
Ha.
So,
Awesome. Cool.
Great.
Well, I think we covered that one.
yeah.
What about emotional support? I think we kind of touched that. But what about emotional support? Because we have a lot of students that go through a lot of hard stuff. We have a lot of us that go through a lot of hard stuff.
Yeah.
What have you seen? We talked about building grit. That's kind of what we just talked about. But what about emotional support? Like, what kind of emotional support do kids need as they're developing through the younger years into the older years? It's a broad question. I know
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
I think if I look at it as a parent, I think that the support I can give my girls emotionally is just my patience first.
Yeah.
In that struggle and in that letting go of my control and allowing this, it's just that I need to remember to have the patience to take the extra time to process my own responses so that in their journey, I'm not interjecting my own self or too soon.
Yeah.
Or and so it's just allowing them to be who they are,
Right.
figure it out first, and then, allowing it. Like, as a present parent, as a parent who is there and, pours into their kids, that, you at some point need to trust that you've done your job and that they can pick it up from there and you can get to, support them in that journey. I think it's just the patience first. And then there's probably a lot more that goes on.
No, that's
with
awesome.
it,
Patience
but-
that's a great thing to bring out. Patience. Well, that is an emotional support. Be patient. Cool. What else? Any other thoughts?
For the little guys, many of their emotional needs are actually physical needs. There's this one sweet little one in kindergarten right now who comes up to me and says, Miss Harrell, can I eat? Miss Harrell, can I eat? And if he doesn't eat, his emotions are going to go out of control. And
That doesn't change, actually, that one.
So I think one of the things before we address the emotions, we need to look at what their physical needs are. Did they were they up late at night? Or did they eat?
Great point.
Did they do they have energy? Were they late to school? For some kids, being late to school really stresses them out.
Yeah.
So getting your kids to school on time does matter, not just because because of them missing that academic time, but kids don't like to walk into the classroom late.
Yeah.
And that causes that causes them to start their day in a negative emotion. So meeting those physical needs first, and then after you found out if it's a physical need that's not being met, then you can move on to, well, what's really bothering you? And just taking that time to listen, it goes along with patience, because it's hard to listen to some kids tell their stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes they use a lot of words.
Yeah.
But when you can hear what the heart of the matter is, a lot of times it's a simple solution.
Yeah.
You just have to hear it out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. One little thing that I would add and I think this really plays out with most human beings, but with little kids especially, from their parents specifically, is that little kids need to know that their love that they receive from their parents is non-contingent.
Yeah.
You know,
Very sure.
Yeah, it's kind of sad sometimes when when I see students or hear students say things that make it seem like they have to earn the love of their parents, right? There's difference between like, my dad's happy that I did this thing, and even though I did a bad thing, my dad still loves me, right? There is a difference. Like, you could still be disciplined because you behaved poorly, but then at the same aspect, the love still exists.
Yeah.
In fact, I think that it's important for parents to communicate that the discipline that students receive or that their kids receive is in fact because of the love.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I have, like, for my daughter, and this is the super easy, low hanging fruit, like if my daughter is going to try to, I don't know, touch a hot stove or something like that, and I discipline her, instead of watching her fingers turn into blisters and like get burnt and have to go to the hospital and all that kind of stuff, you might discipline her and pull her away from the stove and tell her not to do it. And she might get in a little bit of trouble and cry. However, that discipline is not because I have an deep-seated anger at her. It's because I don't want you to be hurt, and I want you to learn to behave correctly. And done correctly, I believe parents can communicate to their kids, your love is always here, non-contingent, no matter what, no matter who you become, who you are, what you've done, there is love here. You're loved by us. All these other things, like when you're being rewarded or praised or punished or disciplined, discipline's a better word. Punish has a lot of context, but discipline's a better word. Discipline, the reason why discipline exists is to guide success. I discipline my daughter because I love her, not at the opposite. Like, a lot of times kid thinks when I'm disciplined, love does not exist. But when I'm not disciplined, then love exists. That needs to be corrected a little bit, I think. And there's nuance in that, in the way that we communicate. I think we need to learn how to talk about it as parents with our kids. Talk about discipline, and then later let's unpack this. Let's talk about why you were disciplined. So
yeah, I would agree with that, and I think giving that bigger purpose, we often don't know that kids will receive that well. But if kids have a bigger reason for being obedient or making good choices, whatever we want to say, they often do it. A simple example is on paint days, we always say we take care of our clothes because we care about our parents. Right. And we've had this long conversation about how much our parents spend their money on us to help to make sure that we have all the things we need. And the way that we show them we care about them is by taking care of the things they've given us. Yeah. Once I started saying that, I hardly ever have kids with paint. Aww. And it's because they go, okay, I get the reason why. I understand why I should be doing this. And with that, I think is also consistency. That confusion that you're talking about often comes because we are not being consistent. Correct. And that creates uncertainty that causes stress in their lives.
100%. Awesome.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
No, I think that it just boils down simply, if you could put it very simple, is like, love your kids. Like, if you love your kids, then those things that you do need to correct, and if it's coming from that place of love, then they'll get it. They'll understand the way. So
totally. Okay, that was deep.
Yeah.
Let's go deeper. In regard to parent support, what have you learned? Again, we've kind of segued into this, right? So, in regard to parent support, from your perspectives in your roles over the years, what have you seen that kids need? So we've talked about love, right? We've talked about non-contingent love. That's kind of almost a given. It should be. What else do kids need from their parents to succeed? Not just in school, but just to succeed socially, all the things. Start here.
I think the number one thing that you could give your kids is a great role model. Like, what the adults that I want to see my children grow up and become I need to be showing them that. Yeah. The decisions that I hope that they're making better be decisions that I'm making, that are supporting my values, that are, benefiting the plan that I'm hoping to have happen. I think that what's the word I'm thinking of? Anyway, I just think that if I want my kids to be choosing friends that are going to support them and love them the way that I would hope, then I need to make sure that I have healthy friendships and I'm modeling the types of people that should be in our circle that also uphold those same values. So I think that, that's the best thing that I could give my kids right now at this point is an example.
That is great input.
Adding on to that, one of my professors in my master's program said, you teach who you are. And that has always stuck with me. We teach who we are. And so I think our children become who we are in the same way that if I want to have students with good character, I need to be a teacher of good character. And if I want my students to be reading in the library, I need to tell them the books I'm reading. So it goes throughout all spheres of that.
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted to add
on that one topic.
Yes.
Oh, and this is go for it. Run it.
Your presence matters. Your active presence matters.
Yes.
The thing the kids need most is you.
Yes.
They need you to be there. They need you to be
Yes.
actively there, not on your phone.
Yeah.
You're modeling again, but also those kids. My favorite part of the day, one of my favorite parts of the day is pickup, which I know I'm the only teacher that thinks that, but that's okay. I don't mind. But I truly love, working with the youngers. I don't think parents know how much their kids are talking about them all day long.
Yep.
Those kids are missing their parents. They miss their parents when they're at school. And they may not show it when they get in the car because we send them home tired, hungry, and cranky, but they have missed you. They have missed their parents all day long. And when they get into that car, they are looking for your face. They are looking for your smile. They are looking for your acknowledgement. They are so excited to be reconnected. And I've just been thinking a lot about that. Like as teachers, we're really taught how the kids enter the room matters.
Yep.
It sets the whole tone of the day. And for families, how we meet our students, our children, when they get into the car sets the whole tone for the rest of the evening. And when we're there, we need to be there.
Yeah.
Like we need to be, it doesn't mean that we are sitting next to them the whole time. It might be that you're making dinner, but you're aware and you're having conversations with your kiddos.
Or they're helping you, or they're
Yeah,
just
or they're helping. Yeah, but it's
That's awesome.
actively being present when your kids are around.
That's hugely important.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think when they get older, that looks a lot different. So I think that when they get in the car, they might not show that they want to, that they were looking for your face, but they really are. Like they really do. And so I think it then becomes like your job to ask the questions and that when the short responses come, because they will come, that keep digging and we're not taking it personally and that developmentally this is kind of where they're at, but they still need you. Like that was the best.
Yeah.
Like that's the best thing you can give your kid is yourself.
Yeah.
Like, be there.
I have some of the older parents, they have snacks ready for their kids because they know they're not going to get any conversation until their kid has eaten.
I have seen
so
that.
it comes right back to that.
Yep.
And then I was talking to another parent just about this as I was preparing. And she said she would always watch her daughters, how they would walk to the car and try to read their body language because seeing how they walk to the car would guide the questions that she would ask on the way home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What my mom used to say is that she used to just put us in the cars and just drive. Like we'd just be in the car and she would just drive somewhere. And it would just kind of, she's like, sometimes I didn't even know where I was going. But I knew that the longer we were in the car and I would just be quiet, the more you all would talk. And just start sharing and talking about what's bugging you or whatever. Especially my youngest brother. She's like, he said, when I could tell that something was up, we'd just go driving. He'd be like, where are we going? We're going to go to the store. But she'd go to like the farthest store possible.
Yeah.
And he would just talk. And I'm learning with just a third grader that I need to be very specific with the questions I ask too. Like how was your day?
Yeah.
Good. Like those answers are already coming. Like I need to be more specific. What math did you do today? What, did you learn science? I know she loves science. Like who is your science teacher today or whatever? Like be very specific in your questions and you will get more specific responses. And just keep digging. Don't give up. And if it's awkward silence, they'll probably eventually talk unless you've handed them a phone. In which case, that's your own fault.
Or if you're on the phone yourself.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Anything else?
No.
I mean, this one could go forever. Okay. In the same thing, advice for parents. How can, advice for parents. Anything else? Just like open mic. Advice for anybody listening.
I just think that never stop pursuing your kids.
Yeah.
Never give up because you think like, oh, they don't need me. Oh, they're big now. Oh, they have their friends, or they're never home. Never stop pursuing. That they definitely need you. Even when they're grown and gone, they still need you.
Yeah. You know, a good friend of mine, he just recently, his sons are high school and graduated, and he just realized, he's like, you know what? My kids might need me more now than they even did when they were young. And he's like, it looks a lot different. He's like, but they're now turning into young men and starting to make these big decisions. I need to make sure I'm present. Like he kind of had this realization of like, the input I'm giving now, they're actually listening. And because he and his wife invested in them early on, their kids are still coming back for advice. Yeah. And so he's like, I need to make sure I don't miss a single opportunity to be there for my boys as they're looking for colleges and whatever, jobs and careers and you know, getting married and all this kind of stuff. He's like, the input they're asking for now has like major consequences. And if I'm not there to get it, they're going to get the answer somewhere. So just like you said, as your kids get older, don't think they don't need you anymore. Like they might need you even more, especially when they do decide they need you. Oh my gosh, don't miss that point. Like I'm terrified that I'll miss something like that on my daughter when she gets older. Like don't miss the time that she asks for real advice. That's huge.
Yeah. And it's the work you do before that that makes them ready to hear what you have to say when they really need to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you have to say?
I don't really have anything to add on that one.
We've talked so many things, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So are we done?
I do have one more thing to add that I've been thinking about. Sorry,
Let's
but
go.
it's not on that topic.
Okay, no,
it's the librarian hat right now.
Let's put it on.
And I just really want to encourage you guys to make sure you know what your kids are reading.
Yes.
The books today, adult conversations have entered children's conversations. And I don't want to get too specific, but there's a lot in books that are just heavy for kids to carry.
Yeah.
And I know if you've got one of those avid readers, it is very, very hard to keep up with what your children are reading. But if you don't, then someone else is influencing your child and you don't know the message that they're giving. And so, but I also want to say that there's a lot of issues that our children are going to have to deal with. And books are a great way to introduce the conversations that need to be had in a developmentally appropriate way.
Right.
There's great ways to have conversations about hard things that are happening in life or with friends or social situations that books can be a real benefit to.
Right.
But if you don't know what your kids are reading, then their worldviews are being formed without your input. And I just wanted to recommend an app or a website, whatever it's called.
Yes,
and it's
please.
called Common Sense Media.
Okay.
And Common Sense Media has TV, it's got games, it's got movies, it's got books. And it's a pretty neutral thing that will give you anything that you need to look for. Any pros or cons about the book, social issues that might be in the book that you wouldn't be aware of. I think at this point, it used to be completely free. I don't know that it's free anymore, but it is worth the money. It is so worth it because at some point, you're not going to be able to keep up with your little readers.
What's the website again?
It's called Common Sense Media.
commonsensemedia.com or .org.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
If you
One of
just
the
Google
two.
Common Sense Media or you look for it in the app,
Yes.
it will come up. And it is, I use it when I am looking for, we try our very best to keep our libraries neutral in all things.
And you've done a hugely successful job.
Well, we do our best. It's very hard, but that is a tool that I use.
Good. Awesome. What are some easy strategies? So like with our daughter, we've stuck with the classics so far. Like books that have stood the test of time. There are so many great, like appropriate, like for all ages books that have been around for 100 years. Why reinvent the wheel sometimes? And so that's one strategy. What's any other easy strategies?
Read with your kid.
Yes. Yes.
I know you read with your third grader.
Oh my gosh. I did not think that I would fall in love with the book Heidi. with was it
Little House on the Prairie.
Little House on the Prairie is
Karen
I'm
and I
very,
talked.
I'm very very annoyed that is one of my favorite book series ever, because it's
so
basically
good.
just a whole like how to homestead.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is great.
The
Like
Pig's Queen.
Pa cut a notch in all the wood and he built this table. Like, it's great. I love those books. But no, she loves it. So the classics are amazing.
Yeah.
And I was surprised at how much I got into the books. And then at this point, she like our daughter reads a lot on her own. So we're, going to read, and I pick up the book to read before bed, and I'm like, what happened? We're like 3 chapters further than what happened? I don't even know what happened to these. So like, I'm annoyed that she's read on.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
no, and reading with your kids, even before they are readers, is in fact the first developmental stage of reading. So you need to read to your kids.
Yeah.
Even as they get older. If you're reading more complex text than they can read, then that helps them look forward to the next step of what they can get access to.
And it teaches that reading is just part of life.
Yes.
It's just part of our habits, part of our things. And I think it's important that we are modeling that. It goes back to that too, that we're modeling that reading is important.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
Yeah.
What a conversation.
Yeah.
This is a winner. I'm pretty excited for this one to come out. Thank you so much. And with that, I think we're done.
Great.
And LFCS Talks. See you next time. Out.